Harry Tindale down in West Palm Beach. You know, it occurred to me, some of you may realize that I missed NAM, but, and that was a big disappointment. I got stuck in headquarters USAF. But by golly, I'm sitting here in West Palm Beach, right close to the front. And as soon as these guys, who was it, Cedrus and Castro, as soon as they make a move, I'm ready to go. I'm going to try to muster a little volunteer group from the South Florida region here, and we'll take care of those guys. You don't have to worry about a thing. Dee just woke me up and reminded me that I said I was going to show you guys the few pictures that I do have of Korea and the area over there, and it certainly isn't many. And of course, like everybody else, I have a sad story, and my sad story is that I went to Korea with a 16mm Bell & Howell camera. I shot a lot of footage. It was a cartridge type camera. I put it in my gun camera, and got some in-flight stuff. I had at least 400 feet of real good footage, and I extended to the Philippines. I guess I'm quite sure I edited it down there at Clark. Showed it once. I actually saw it once, and I've never seen it since. So you don't get to see any of the movies. And I was not big on still pictures, but I do have a few, and we'll run through them. We'll run through them now, and I'll tell you what I know about some of the guys. I'll mention as many names as I can think of at this date, and we'll see how we come out. But we'll just look at a few. I was in the 12th Squadron, by the way. Latecomers, we flew into Busan and rode trucks over to Chinhae, K-10. So let's start out there. You'll all recognize a runway shot from K-10. I know you know this one, and if you were able to go straight ahead, I mean dead straight down the runway and over that mountain, you're a better man than I. I say that because I made a max performance climb one day. That is the best techniques I had, which was a high angle climb at 110 miles an hour. And I tell you, when I got up real close to that mountain, pretty near that high point, I had to give way to the right. And this is K-46, the new base that was built for us when we moved over from K-16 in, I believe, October '52. In any case, it had a nice hill down at the south end where I shot these shots. You have here the rocket dump, of course. Hey, let's troop the flight line for a minute here. And the photography. That's the logical ramp I'd go to, being from the 12th. Who claims old boots? Anybody out there claim to own boots? And that's another handsome shot. I don't know, I don't recall them being lined up that nicely with one prop straight up. Good show. Very uniform. Must have been inspection day. Here's one taken off. Nice looking shot. I don't see any napalm, so that can't be Stud the day he had a sputter and had to do a fast 180, drop the tanks, and no, he dropped the tanks on takeoff and then landed through the fire. That's the way it went. A pretty good show. And one of me, the only picture I have in uniform over there. Okay, now we're going to talk people. And in order to talk people, I have to mention the fact that Pete Clark, who was in the 12th, wrote an article. By the way, he died in, I think, December '89, just before this article came out. But he wrote a great article for Air Classics magazine. And in that issue, he had a picture of, I think, the entire 12th Squadron. It was a picture that I didn't have any copy of. Oh, there's Pete on posing before his Mustang. A shot he must have brought home with him. That's a good shot of him. But what he really had in there was a shot of the whole squadron. And I'm in it. Actually, Pete was there somewhat before I was, but he was still there when I got there, because I can remember sitting around the tent talking about his wanting to get to Hawaii, and I didn't know how that was possible, but I know that's where he ended up, and that's where he died, and I'll show you a picture of him later. These people, Fighting Mustang, republished Pete's article a little while later. Well, I'll tell you what, now we'll go in and we'll use the picture that was in here. And when I saw this, I wrote him a video letter. Now, that's 5 years ago, but I'm going to take some pieces out of that video letter and run that, because that had some pictures of people and some names that I probably can't think of now, and I can't really duplicate. So I'm going to use what is going to be low quality film in some cases to pull some of the pictures out of the Truck Buster magazine that I used when I sent it to him. Okay, now here's a close-up of that cover. Notice Mustangs over Pyongyang. That was the name of the title of his article. And this is Pete in a picture that his wife sent to me in response to the letter. She said this is his last flight, which was in a PT-17, and it was just shortly before he returned. And let me see, died of, I believe it was cancer, I'm not sure. Okay, here is a rather high, this is the best quality I have. I shot this since the letter. This is the picture that was in the magazine. So we'll show you this while it's clean, which is clean, and then I'll cut to what I sent to Pete, because and we'll pick up the narration from it. But this is a general runaround of the same picture we'll be talking about. There might be better recognition in this one. Okay, we'll set up the close-up operation here. We'll get our group picture, see what we can get on that one with our... As best I can, I've got a pointer pointing me out in this picture. I know several of the other fellas. I sure couldn't remember too doggone many, but I know that Hargraves is in there, Larry Trumbull is in the center, Jack Zemer is over, let's see, two spots to my, well, to my right in the actual picture, but as you look at it, 2 spots to the left, next to, who was it you said? Okay, trying a tighter close-up here, see what we can get out of this magazine. That's still me. We'll move over here. This is who I said was Jack Zemer. This is Jack, and of course you knew Oliver Jones. I didn't know Oliver. I didn't remember. I certainly, I feel like I should remember this guy, but I don't, honestly. I don't think it's John Swanson.
who was later killed, by the way. But here comes Orvie Wyatt into the picture. This is Elvin O. Orvie Wyatt, who was Assistant Flight Commander to John Kahn. John Kahn was my flight commander when I got there. And I flew the first 40 or 50 missions with Orvie and John up front. And we had Hargraves. This is Hargraves, I believe, right here. This is Larry Trumbull. For sure, he was ops officer. I don't know if he was, exactly when he took ops, but he was ops officer for most of the time. Left me as ops officer when he left. But for the rest of them, I'm afraid that I don't really recognize. I can't make them out. Oh, there's the boss. There's John Reese in the center. That just might be John Kahn next to him. But I wouldn't swear to that at all. I'd like to know, just for curiosity. I would hope you'd recognize, Pete, this is the 18th Fighter Bomber Wing Truck Busters that was put together. Really, I think it got together and was delivered sometime after you left. You're in here, however. Of course, it has the 100 mission pilots. I didn't get into it. It was printed before I finished, but well after you finished. So we'll take a look in here. I'll see how well I can do with the macro setup on this. We'll bring up some of the guys, and I'll tell you what I know about them, and as much as I know about them, which is about all we can do here. Bring you up to date as far as I can bring you up to date. This book opened up. We'll turn it to the group on the 100 mission pilots. Okay, first we'll take a long, slow look at you. And here's John Reese as best I can get him. Fred, not too bad on the... There's Orvie Wyatt, who you've seen before. And Kahn as best I can get him. Not too hot, but it's the best I can. Lieutenant Strange, who I should remember, but unfortunately I don't remember much about him. I didn't know him real well. Major Bob Holsom back on the left, who we used to call Dad. It was his idea. Oh, he was, by the way, was a 42-year-old. He was the oldest guy that came over with us. But he got the idea right away because there were so many rest caps going on to develop a drop tank with survival gear in it. And by golly, within 2 weeks of the time he developed this thing, they dropped it to somebody on a mountainside, and they did pick the guy up the next day, and he said, sure enough, he had used the equipment, so it was a good idea, and we kept the tank ready for drop at all times. And your early commanders, General Curtis R. Lowe, then Colonel, but I worked for General Lowe at Hamilton Field later on, I'd say 54 or 55. Real fine guy. He was commander of 28th Air Division. And Colonel Ralph Salzmann. I guess he made bird while you were there, Pete. He was a bird colonel when I got there.
Okay, this is NaN Flight. With, that's me on the left, John Swanson in the middle, Hargraves on the right, and Jones down below. Here, left to right, we have McGowan on the left, but I think he's the one in the foreground. That's Jack Zemer on the right of him. And the youngster in the background, I don't know. This is Colonel Joe Crane, West Virginia National Guard. He was our commander, 12th commander, succeeded John Reese. This is Colonel Cy Levinson in the middle, talking to Bob Harrison on the right. Colonel Levinson was commander of an 89 outfit up in Milwaukee, and one day when he was groping for a landing in a fog, flying very low to the runway, he ran smack into the side of a ship and was killed. Fantastic. In this crap game on the right, you'll see Bruce Stud Clark, and Herb Ragsdale was in there. This is Bob Titus. Dick Francis at the bar at K-10. Bill Ham on the left and Don Troy on the right, I believe. This is Gregory and NaN Flight at the end. I can't, Lent was among them. I can't put the names on all of them. But this was NaN Flight. And there's an interesting aside here, but I don't think I'll have time to go into it. This is Topper. And Topper's here at the reunion, I understand. I'm guessing that he is. Bob Titus said he would be. There's a close-up of him. He and Bob have stayed in touch over the years. There's Robert L. Herman. He's my three-war man. I meant to call him up and see how he's doing. I've often wondered. He's one of the few guys that might possibly have reached Don Blakesley's record of 1,000 combat hours. I don't really know, but Bob had a 175 P-38 missions and then another 100 in Korea. Boy, I'm getting behind. That was Doc Singer. This is me on the left, Jack Brown, Jensen, Holsenbach, and Davies it was. Now this guy is Chuck McGee. He flew his 100. And he may have come from the Philippines, I don't know, but in any case, he was my squadron commander in the 44th down in PI when I got there. So he may be here. That's my Century Series.
Captain John E. Taylor, Jr. John Taylor is a very special case with me. He would have been my nomination for the greatest warrior I've ever run across. He really was a tiger. Now, he was in the 35th Squadron, 39th, I'm sorry, and you may very well have known him. He probably had, well, he was undoubtedly over 100 missions when you left, and he ended up flying 162, I believe it was. Never hurt a wingman, and he flew through every barn in North Korea. He really seldom brought back a rocket or a bomb or a bullet. He expended them all, and he never got anybody hurt. He was really good, and not just lucky, he was pure skill. But anyway, he didn't quit. He didn't want to quit at 162, but he wanted to get into jets. You may remember we had a Colonel David T. McKnight, in the 18th for a little while. As a matter of fact, he might have gotten there about the time you left. But in any case, Colonel McKnight later got the 49th Wing, which was straight wing, 84Ds. And John, wanting to get into jets, wrangled himself a deal whereby he would go to Misawa, Japan. There was an 84 outfit over there at Misawa, and here's where we tie in. Bob Wright was in that outfit. That was a California National Guard unit, I believe. And Bob was up there. So when John told me he was going to Misawa to fly 84s, I wrote Bob Wright a letter and said, hey, watch for a guy named John Taylor. He's a real hot shot, a friend of mine, and a really good guy. He wants to get some 84 time. So bingo, in a week or so, I get a letter back from Wright. He says, your letter arrived the same day John Taylor did, and they gave him to me to check out. But he said, this letter, it's going to take some doing because this guy wants to do things that can't be done. So I wrote back a letter right away, and I said, now, hey, Bob, watch it. This guy will do things that can't be done. He is real. You better believe what he says, because he doesn't exaggerate, he doesn't kid. What he says he means, and he can usually deliver. And sure enough, by the next letter I got back from Bob Wright said, holy mackerel, you were absolutely right, this guy is incredible. So anyhow, he got some time in the 84s up at Misawa, then came back to wherever the 49th was, I forget which airfield, but Colonel McKnight took him in there. John flew about 40 missions with them. Did the spectacular. And then he wanted to go to 86 as well. Colonel McKnight prevailed on Colonel Kabreski, who had the 4th Wing. the Glamour Boys in the 86s, and I don't think he really wanted John up there, but because he wasn't an insider. See, the fourth wing had all of the fair-haired boys from World War II, and some of the younger guys out of Nellis. But anyway, John was not an insider, but because Colonel McKnight prevailed on him, Colonel Kabreski let him in. Well, of course, John arrived there with his bandoliers of ammunition, and we had a burp gun, a machine, paratroopers collapsible machine gun that he carried on every mission. And as you may remember, this guy was serious. He told his flight, honest to God briefing now, he said, if I go down, don't you dare cap me and give me away. I've got a radio. You go home, tell them you saw the shoot, if you saw the shoot, and I'll contact you. I'll let you know when I want to be picked up, but I don't want anybody giving me away. So anyhow, Colonel Kabreski did accept it quite reluctantly. And now I met John in the University Club after they had shut him off in the fourth wing. I think he got in 35 missions. I met him. He married a Japanese girl too, by the way. I met him in the University Club after he had been shut down, and he told me that he enjoyed the heck out of it, but he didn't get any breaks. And he never flew on. They wouldn't let him fly on a sweep mission. What he was doing was escorting photo recon F-80s. He would take them up, do their mission, bring them back to the bomb line, ask them if they were sure that they were okay. When they said they were okay, he'd turn around, go back up and hunt MiGs. Now this guy never saw, how shall I say it? Here's what he told me. He was never on a sweep. He never encountered a MiG on a day when anyone else saw a MiG. You understand? There were sweeps up there. They didn't see any MiGs. John caught up with 8 MiGs. He got 2.5 confirmed and had films, pictures, taken pieces off of the other 5. He didn't miss any of them. As expected. Of course, he didn't knock them all down. He said he was in one hassle for about 12 minutes with a guy, and the way he said it was, we spent 12 minutes at 7 Gs. And the guy was good. And when the guy decided to break it off, he just spiraled up, away from out of the fight. And John had pieces of him. So that's the way it was with John E. Taylor, Jr.